6:15 to 6:30.
Oh, well.
So
Stop early. Stop early and go home.
we shall see.
Yeah.
How's Nancy? How's the new pup?
Oh, new pup is still a nuisance.
Ah.
He's. When Nancy wanted me to take him out before I left, and so she was trying to get his tracking collar on him, and he was just going around in circles, and she.
I got Mike's turn. Thank you.
You're being heard right now, too.
Well, just because the green light's going doesn't mean it's going over the air. Yeah, we're still on. All right, well, we'll get started.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
We'll turn them on now, I guess. Is that camera on?
Welcome to Truth and Life Today with Congregation Adat Ariel, Jewish believers in Jesus and teachers of spiritual warfare. If you'd like to speak with us tonight, call 618-924-1851. And now, here's the lovely and talented producer Deb.
Welcome again this year, 2026, to the Truth and Life Today program. And I am indeed producer Deb, bringing you again a biblical perspective of the things we see going on around us and the headlines around the world in the same tradition established for this program by Rabbi Moshe Lori. I am, as I said, producer Deb, and with me today in this brand new year,
Richard Peck. I'm glad to be here as usual.
And Happy New Year, everybody. This is Jim over here in the corner. And if you'd like to give us a call, have any questions or comments, you can call 618-924-1851.
Yes, and prior to the show, we were talking about there's a new addition in Richard's family.
Yes. We have a brand new shelter dog. And anyway, he's an absolute nuisance. He's a German Shepherd mixed with, I think, a Husky. And he's so full of energy for two old people. He keeps us going, I'm telling you. So.
And how old do they think he is?
Well, they think he's 2. They named him Charlie at the shelter. My wife renamed him Charlie Boy. So he's Charlie Boy.
Charlie Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So does he talk back to you?
Yeah, he does. He does. Yeah. And I met the vet the other day that normally we use, and I told him, I says, well, we have a new dog, and he was in the grocery store at Kroger's, and he goes, oh no. Oh no.
What kind is he, a Husky? Oh no.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember the show with Caesar Milan where the people got a husky dog. It was a husky puppy, and then the puppy was growing up, and it was supposed to be the dog that the young boy in the family. I'm thinking the boy was somewhere between 10 and 12 years old. He was supposed to become basically the caretaker of the husky. The husky got to be too mouthy, too rambunctious, too jumpy, and he wasn't under control, you know. So they brought in Caesar, and Caesar sat down, and he's sitting there, and he clasps his hands and he smiles at them. He goes, okay, whose idea was it to get the first dog as a husky? And he's just smiling. and so he was like, and he said, it's a high energy dog. And eventually he said he took this dog. Now I don't know how old the dog was at the time. I think the dog was still like less than a year old, somewhere around a year. So Caesar puts on his rollerblades, right? They're in a neighborhood, and so he puts on the rollerblades and he takes the dog out because he can like get the dog like with the leash, get
Yeah.
him going and get him running, get him in stride, just
Yeah.
like a husky does on a sled.
Yeah.
So he takes dog, and this dog lasts about a minute. And he was like, "What's wrong with you? You're a husky. You're supposed to go for miles, right?" So the dog was out of shape.
Yeah.
The dog was not, so he actually, I think, eventually got the father on a bicycle to take the dog. He says, "Okay, the son." He didn't think it would be safe for the son. It's like, you need to get this dog out, because he said it needs, its lungs weren't built up.
Yeah.
Its body, and stamina was not bought. And he goes, "That's what this dog is for."
Yeah.
And he said, "You've got to keep it healthy. You're going to have to get out on your rollerblades or get on your," and he trained it. They trained the dog because he didn't want the dog going faster than the bike. Right. So because you would throw somebody off a bike. So, Caesar was all involved in getting
this is the
that.
fastest dog we've ever had.
Yeah.
He runs circles around our flower bed out there, and I've never seen a dog run circles that fast before.
Well,
he's fast.
If he's got husky in him, he needs to run.
Yeah, he's fast.
And so he, I don't know if you could take him to a dog park every once in a while and let him run big time or what. But he
gets the zoomies, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, he's fast.
Yep. So that's what.
We have turkeys in our back 40 every now and then, like 26 turkeys will light down. And Maximus, our former German Shepherd, could not reach the turkeys before they'd fly off. I'm not too sure this dog could not reach the turkeys.
Yeah,
I think he could reach before they fly off.
So, well, yep. So
he's fast.
Yep. So he's gonna need. Are you good on rollerblades?
I do not have any rollerblades. No.
I can see you going down rollerblades onto your, on that gravel driveway you have, going out into the highway between Johnson City and Pittsburgh there. Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to be there with a camera when that happens. That's a good YouTube video. That's funniest home video, Richard. That's $10,000 material right there.
Well, now we know how to Richard in the new year.
Right.
So
that's right.
Boy, so
that's right.
Dog pulling you.
Charlie boy is a handful.
Is a handful. So, well, we have things to talk about. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of headlines here, but of course, we do know that Benjamin Netanyahu visited us this week here at the Mar-a-Lago, the White House of the South, and then I'm sure he is headed back now, and then or is back in Israel, and then of course I was sitting there, and I saw that they were going to be broadcasting all of the pomp and circumstance with the new election of the mayor, the anti-Semitic socialist mayor of New York City.
Oh yeah.
And it just rose. Anger, not overwhelming rage, but anger rose up in me, because I was sitting there saying, this is such a farce.
Right.
This guy is going to be running New York City, and he is going to, he has the smugness, and he's going to stand there and lie to your face and feel fully justified in doing it.
Right.
It's like the biggest thumb of the nose to God.
Yeah.
This, and so I'm going to encourage everyone. Rabbi would do this. He would go out with his shofar, and I may mention this tomorrow night at Shabbat service. He would go out and he would take authority and dominion of areas and scatter the demonic. And no time is better than now to be doing that. People need to be taking authority in your areas, because this type of stuff is going to be coming to a city and a town near you. And we're going to have to stand up to it. This is the takeover. And they say, well, these people, they have a right to freedom of religion. I'm going to encourage everyone to get William Federer's book, What America Needs to Know About Islam, and study up on it and understand that religion is one thing, but this is a militant movement disguised in a religion.
Yep.
And they're going to use our laws against us. And we're going to have to get much more. I mean, all of these people, they think in New York, they think they're so progressive.
Yeah.
Oh, they've got this guy. Oh, he's going to do all this for them. It's like, you are the people that he's going. I mean, there is no desire to separate church and state or separate mosque and state.
This guy try to take them back to the century. That's what he's going to
do. This is part of the plan. It's not going to happen overnight, but this part of the plan. Everywhere they put their foot, they're claiming it for Allah. I don't care what he says, because if you want to look it up, I'm not going to explain it, but it's called taqiyya. He can lie to your face and tell you all sorts of things in his quest for domination.
Yep, because you're
Muhammad taught.
Yeah, because you're an infidel.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this is what's on the move right now in this nation. And
I'm not too sure too many people know that the Quran was actually came through Muhammad in a cave where he was frothing at the mouth. And this is documented historically. And of course, then they write this information down, and it becomes the Quran.
Right. He can't. He couldn't write. He couldn't read or write.
Yeah.
So, this is all stuff that's been dictated.
He taught his followers to lie and tell lies about the fact that, we are very sociable with these people until we get to the point where we have enough power to overtake them and kill them.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's part of this.
And then if you don't, just like they came through the all across the whole Mediterranean area, if you don't convert to Islam, they're going to kill you.
Right.
Yeah. That was their program.
They had a deal you could pay some sort of demi tax. Well, and they're coming into areas, and it's like I said, this whole thing. It had been used against Christian church, the separation of church and state. They took Christianity out of the public square. But in this instance, and it's not even in the Constitution. They keep, it's in the Constitution. It's like, no, it's not. It was in a letter. I believe it was written by Thomas Jefferson, and it was an idea. But so it's not something that's encoded there, but it might serve us to start using that. Because if they're going to demand that the Christians stay out of the public square, then maybe we better demand that Islam stays out of the public square.
Right.
Well, they're already instituting laws, or they're calling laws. I believe Rubio is one of them. I believe John Kennedy is one of them. And they are saying that Sharia laws cannot be used to change the Constitution.
Right. They're going to have to. And these are the things. And so this is going to be a year where we're going to have to become much more diligent in the public square. You're going to probably have to contact your representatives. You're probably going to have to get involved. If we're going to just continue as Christians to sit on the sideline, we're going to get wiped out.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to speak up.
Right.
We're coming up. This is 2026. It's the midterms.
All you have to do is look at the nation of Turkey.
Right.
In the ancient Turkey geographical area that's now called Turkey, it was originally all Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. That was where Paul ministered most of the early churches.
Yes.
Galatians, Ephesians, you name all these churches that are in the New Testament, they're all in Turkey.
Right.
But today, Turkey is a Muslim nation.
Yes.
Right. And guess what? It's against Israel.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you look at Persia, Iran, they used to have a very good relationship with the Jews.
Right.
Well, Iran is like in such an upheaval. Everybody was trying to figure out what Netanyahu and Trump were going to be talking about this week. Oh, they're going to deal with the Palestinian issue. Oh, they're going to go to phase 2. No, they're not going to phase 2. The last hostage has not been released.
Right.
They're not going to be doing that. I'm imagining that Benjamin Netanyahu came here to talk to Donald Trump about the serious situation going on in Iran.
Yeah.
Now, right now, their currency has collapsed.
Right. I've heard
and
that, yeah.
there is upheaval in the streets.
Yeah, they're rioting.
They're rioting
in the streets
because now it's like,
of Iran.
you know, I hate to say it, but I'm a woman. I'm going to say it anyway. The fact that they were killing women because they weren't properly wearing their hijabs didn't seem to stir up things. But you do not separate a man from the money in his pocket. And I tell you what, when it comes to their money, then they'll stand up and protest. I didn't see anybody protesting in the streets except the women about the hijabs.
Yeah.
But now the guys are getting upset because you're messing with their money.
Right.
So there's a big upheaval over there. They have tremendous drought.
Yeah.
That's going on over there. But what are they doing? They're concentrating. They've got to save face, these mullahs that are in charge. So they're trying to get together drones and different things to attack Israel again. They're putting together back the nuclear programs. It didn't stop them. I mean, as many bombs as we've dropped on that nation, it didn't slow them down. So Satan is alive and well and operating in Iran. But I believe that that's what the big talk was about, probably between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, is like, how are we going to handle this Iran situation? Because it's gotten pretty bad. So, but I was going to read here, Avi Abelo. I've got a couple things that Avi has talked about here. He says, "Happy secular New Year." just to let you know, he goes, I don't know how many people know this, but as some of the world takes a vacation to celebrate January 1, Jews in Israel wake up, get the kids to school, go to work, and move forward with life. And honestly, that makes me smile. Now, he is, of course, a devout Jew, right?
Yeah.
Not because I'm against celebration, far from it. I'm all for celebrating life at every moment possible, even on January 1st, marking moments of gratitude and pausing to say thank you for each and every blessing we have, including waking up in the morning and breathing. But there is something deeply grounding, even moving, about the fact that in Israel, January 1st is just another regular day. No fireworks, no national countdown, no borrowed calendar. Why? Because in Israel, our Jewish nation has already celebrated our national and cultural New Year 3 months ago on Rosh Hashanah, exactly when I've done so for thousands of years on the Jewish calendar as delineated in the Torah. That may sound like a small thing, but it's not. It's a quiet yet powerful sign that we are home, truly home in our ancestral homeland, a place where the national calendar is our calendar, where Jewish time, not Western time, sets the rhythm of the state. When Rosh Hashanah arrives, the country stops, families gather, the nation reflects. This is not symbolism, that is sovereignty. For any parent who cares about their child's Jewish identity, their confidence as a Jew, and the continuity of our people, there is no greater gift than raising your children in Israel. Yes, Israel is still a work in progress. We have much to strengthen in the Jewish character of the state. We still carry too many foreign Western frameworks that clash with our identity and delude our purpose. But the direction is clear, and it is a right one. The world does not need another generic Western democracy. The modern world is starving for something that has never truly had before: a strong, proud, biblically rooted Jewish state, living its values openly, unapologetically, and confidently in its own land. This is not our right, it is our destiny, and we are in the miraculous process of fulfilling it. So as the world toasts the start of 2026, Jews in Israel quietly go about their day, living on Jewish time in a Jewish land, according to a Jewish rhythm that predates every modern empire still standing. And to any Jews still not here with us, still watching from afar, I ask you lovingly but directly, what are you waiting for? Don't wait for Jew-hating anti-Semitism to knock on your door and remind you where you belong. Don't wait for the world to turn darker before choosing light. Come home. History is moving, and it's moving here. Happy secular New Year. Am Yisrael Chai. I just wanted to say that, I mean, and to understand the Jewish, where the Jews are, who are there. Avi is a very I don't exactly know how to describe their politics, but he's what you would call, from our perspective, right wing. There's a huge part, and I'm going to talk about it here in a little bit on some of his writings, of the left wing of in Israel right now. But he did have a comment here. Mamdani is now the mayor of New York. Look at his first appointments. Personnel is policy, and policy shapes culture, safety, and whether a city belongs to its citizens or to ideology. We've seen this movie before. Tehran, Beirut, London, Paris, all once thriving, liberal, free, safe cities, all taken over by the red-green jihadi alliance. Hollowed out by leaders who sold radical ideology for compassion and chaos for progress. New York just fell in that same pit. This isn't about left or right, it's about reality. When duped citizens vote in the red-green jihadi activists, radical ideology over law, and grievance over responsibility, cities don't become more just, they become conquered. I think that's what we were trying to say, right? Just look at the history of Iran and Beirut and what is happening in Western Sopian countries. The picture is as clear as day. It's time to leave. History doesn't whisper, it warns. Ignore it and the future becomes obvious. New Yorkers, the fun is over. Jews come home, not to run from the inevitable tsunami of Jew hatred, but to come home. The Jews are always the canary in the coal mine for society. And I believe that's what we're trying to say here.
Yep.
Now, this is what I wanted. This is kind of some of the, because he's over there in Israel. I think he's back and forth quite a bit, but he's over there in Israel. And so this is some of the deep stuff, their deep state that's going on. And I just wanted to pass this along. He said, it's a cover-up. October 7th was not only a catastrophic security failure, it was the moment Israel's deep state closed ranks to protect itself with the full assistance of the justice system. Just to put things into perspective. Now, I always do this because it's that parallel running between the United States and Israel. We have a corrupt justice system.
Right.
They tried to illegally prosecute Donald Trump. How many times was he, and how many cases?
3 times they
impeach him, but they've tried to, I don't know how many things. They took the same charge against him and charged him over and over for the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, anyway.
Well, I mean, they impeached him once after he was out of office.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, well, he can't, and then, we're gonna try him. We're gonna put him on trial.
Right.
If we put him on trial and we convict him, then he can't run for president.
Yeah. All that stuff.
Because there are still people out there. There is no way that a convicted felon should be running for president.
Right.
And I was like, what if that felon is a ham sandwich?
Right.
Because under today's rules, a ham sandwich can be convicted.
Yeah. He wasn't put in prison. He wasn't found guilty.
Yeah.
So anyway, but here we go on this sort of stuff. The head of intelligence, Ronan Barr himself, admitted in a document he personally submitted to the Supreme Court, their Supreme Court,
right,
not our Supreme Court, that he was aware as early as 1:30 a.m. of concrete warnings about an imminent Hamas attack. He acknowledges that he dispatched a special team to the Gaza border, yet chose not to alert the prime minister until 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, boy.
After the rocket barrage had already begun. Even more alarming, IDF forces were instructed to pull back from the Gaza fence.
Oh, boy.
Units were left unprepared for a potential assault with no full alert, no full alert was issued, and they were totally surprised by the Hamas infiltration, literally in their pajamas. These are not minor lapses or matters of hindsight. These are decisions and failures that demand a full independent investigation.
Right.
Instead of transparency on that and other issues, we are witnessing a coordinated judicial campaign led by Supreme Court President Yitzhak Amit to block accountability wherever it threatens to expose the political agenda of Israel's deep state and legal elite. Okay, so that's how they're being identified here. They have a deep state and a legal elite. Okay, and they're people in the high rank are trying to cover up for it. Just consider some of the court's recent actions. It moved to block the state comptroller from investigating the security service's failure to prevent the October 7th massacre, despite senior intelligence officials illegally refusing to testify. testify. The senior Shin Bet officials were not punished for going against the law, for refusing to testify. Instead, the law is stopping the investigation. It has frozen every attempt by the Justice to appoint an independent investigator into the military advocate general after her admitted leak of a fabricated video to the media caused immense diplomatic damage to Israel, culminating in a disgraceful United Nations resolution falsely accusing IDF soldiers of rape. For more than a year, it stonewalled the lawful dismissal of the failed intelligence chief Ronan Bar, responsible for the catastrophic intelligence breakdown, if not much worse, of October 7th. And now it is actively working to block Netanyahu's new appointment for the head of Mossad. On top of all that, it has now blocked a decision to shut down the IDF radio station, an outlet that had long functioned as a political mouthpiece against Netanyahu and his governments, and as a demoralizing voice undermining IDF soldiers fighting the war, embedded within the army itself. So they've got within themselves their own Tokyo Rose.
Wow.
Sure.
This was despite the fact that the decision was taken fully in accordance with the law and in line with the formal legal ruling of the previous Attorney General. For years, the Army radio station has served as an ideological left-wing pipeline feeding like-minded journalists directly into the mainstream media, entrenching ideological control while preventing real competition from Israelis who served in other military roles for 3 or more years and pursued journalism through regular academic paths. Sound familiar?
Yep.
None of these rulings are about law. They are all about power. The picture is becoming clearer by the day to anyone willing to connect the dots. A triangle of interests protecting one another, senior intelligence figures, the mainstream media, and the legal system, each covering for the others to preserve their power. All at the direct expense of the public's true right to truth, accountability, and democratic oversight and security. Again, sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
And now the mask slips even further. An Israeli journalist, Amit Segal, reported this morning Supreme Court Chief Justice Amit has invited Asa Kasher, I guess is how, and Oki Maroshak, two of the most prominent public advocates of the IDF insubordination campaign, who urged soldiers to refuse service during the judicial reform debate, to the Supreme Court for what is being billed as a democracy education day. Kind of sounds like what our Democrats were telling our police and ICE officials to do, right? As Amit Segal commented himself, there was a time when incitement to refusal brought you before a court as a defendant, not as a guest of honor. Not neutral education. This is ideological signaling. A normal Supreme Court adjudicates statutes and rights. Israel's Supreme Court acts as a political shield for an ideological agenda pushed by a self-perpetuating legal security media class. The same class that enabled, excused, or paralyzed the system before October 7th and now insists on investigating everyone except itself or themselves, right? This is why so many Israelis do not trust Chief Justice Amit to oversee the investigation into October 7th. Any credible inquiry must examine everything: intelligence failures, command decisions, political failures, starting with the Oslo peace process that handed guns and land to a known terror organization with a charter to destroy Israel, and the impact of the pre-October 7th IDF insubordination campaign, and the role Supreme Court rulings played in eroding deterrence and cohesion.
Yeah.
Yet the loudest voices demanding Amit lead the probe are the same voices declaring entire subjects and officials off limits, especially the scrutiny of the Supreme Court itself and the IDF insubordination campaign. This is not justice. This is a cover-up. Israel does not need another whitewashed report. It needs truth without for elites, and without a court that confuses guarding democracy with guarding its own power and ideological agenda. Like I said, this all sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
The truth about the failures that led to October 7th include the role played by the Brothers in Arms IDF insubordination campaign will come out. The cover-up of the security intelligence establishment and legal system will be exposed. And the military attorney general, along with those in the legal establishment who enabled and amplified the fabricated Sadeh Taman video blood libel against our holy IDF soldiers, will be held accountable. It is not happening as quickly as we want or as justice demands, because the Supreme Court currently has the power to block virtually any government decision, appointment, or investigation it chooses.
Yeah.
As long as that reality exists, we cannot realistically expect full transparency. This is why real judicial reform, ending the judicial dictatorship we are living under today, is essential. Israelis are learning the hard way that courts and judges are unfortunately political actors as well, and that they too must be subject to checks and balances, just like politicians and every other branch of the democratic system. That day is coming, even if not as fast as we need it to. I think that's one page. As the people of Israel grow stronger in our Jewish identity, our sense of purpose, and our connection to Torah, all anathema to the ideological agenda of the deep state, and as the Jewish state of Israel continues to rise as a regional and global power, their cover-up will become increasingly exposed. Once they started down this path, they lost the ability to stop it. So laugh it all off, because no matter what else they throw at us to try to stop it, the truth will come out. Strengthen your faith. Great times are coming. Again, he always signs off, Israel Kai. So, of course, what we learned about at one point, somebody had written about the fact that they don't vote for and elect Supreme Court justices over there.
They aren't appointed either.
They're
appointed by the own Supreme Court.
By their own Supreme Court.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court, the people who are on their Supreme Court, they pick out who they want to take over for them when they want to leave or retire.
Right.
So they get somebody with the same ideological agenda. The other problem is that everything that they do in the Knesset can be overridden by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
They don't have, the structure's not like ours. So they'll vote laws in, and the Supreme Court will say, we don't like that, and we'll toss it out. And so it doesn't become law. So I really don't. This is your quote unquote true democracy.
Well, Netanyahu actually tried to remodel the Supreme Court, and half the nation rose up and started marching against it. Of course, we know those are the liberals involved in over there, and they didn't want any part of it.
Well, see, here's where it really gets convoluted, because we keep talking about the Israeli deep state. I'm wondering how involved the Israeli deep state was in the attack on October 7th. Were they in on this?
Well, they could have been. Yeah. They're not going to allow any investigation to take place.
And that's why I think, what are they afraid of finding?
Right.
Right. So I just wanted to catch everybody up on what's going on there.
Right.
And how things, I just don't, until you get people like Avi on that side to stand up and start overriding the local media and start getting the information to all the people and try to expose that. They evidently, they don't have freedom of press either, in a way.
Right.
They're being, that's what's happening here. Our media is all leftist controlled.
Right. Yep.
And so that's why you might be watching us now, because you're trying to go to an alternative source to find out things.
Exactly.
And so this is what's happening. And I just wanted to, that's why we work hard. I try to get my sources and try to follow things along here to what's going on, because we're not getting the truth the other way. Through the established media, through the establishment, let's say, it's all been corrupted. So,
dare I say it? You could probably get more accurate news about the United States from the Russian newspapers, from TASS, from Pravda, rather than actually listening here. The only thing that's not accurate in Russia with their news is about Russia.
Right.
It's just like here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
I would be worried, a little bit worried about propaganda coming out of Russia to stir up propaganda against us. I mean, that's their whole thing. Yeah. They want the propaganda. I have followed some people out of Israel who look back at us and give, so they'll bring up certain things that are not being talked about in the regular mainstream media.
Right.
And so, I have to look around. But
I'm sure vice versa with Israel.
Right.
Because, they're a lot of their media, like you just said, is as liberal as ours is.
Right.
I mean, they're just totally against Bibi.
Right. They are. So, let me just do a couple of these headlines. I don't know. I'm going to try to go through this. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told evangelical Christian leaders in Florida that Israel is waging a new front against Islamic persecution of Christians worldwide. And they are praising Christian Zionist support for the Jewish state while framing the effort as a common Judeo-Christian battle. Now, this is coming by Joshua Klein out of Breitbart. Netanyahu met Wednesday with the heads of Christian churches and universities who congratulated him on his meeting with President Donald Trump and praised what his office described as his steadfast wartime decisions. And then he said, of course, he reminded everyone they've been fighting a 7-front war, but he said he argued a broader ideological struggle still looms. While he referenced an 8th front involving the hearts and minds of people, Netanyahu framed the larger point as a shared civilization fight, insisting it reaches beyond the Jewish state alone. This is not just Israel's battle. I think it's our common Judeo-civilization's battle, he said, warning it affects Israel, America, their alliance, and the future of Western civilization. The Israeli premier rejected the idea that religious convictions should retreat in the face of violence, declaring faith should speak its voice and terrorism should be confronted, not understood, that should be confronted and defeated. And he told delegation he had spoken with President Trump in the previous day and said he views the campaign against Israel and the Judeo-Christian tradition as being waged globally by two forces: radical Shiite Islam, led by Iran, and radical Sunni Islam, led by the Muslim Brotherhood, which he said permeates everything. Right? So, and then he said he pointed to Christian persecution across the Middle East, beyond naming Syria, Lebanon, Nigeria, Turkey, and other places where he said communities face mounting danger. And then Netanyahu then cast Israel as the regional exception. He said, our country protects the Christian community, enables it to grow, defends it, and makes sure it thrives. And that country is Israel. There is no other, none. So, and so he's joining with, the campaign of trying to help. I mean, President Trump just bombed Nigeria, right? Because of that. So,
yeah. Boko Haram is now Bamo Haram.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But this is the thing, like I said, I think that they were talking about, it says here, the Israeli Defense Force is expediting preparations for a multi-front war with Iran in light of the internal unrest in the Islamic Republic. And this is it's a Hebrew media is reporting this. And so this is coming out of the Jewish News Syndicate. Preparations, which are part of the military's multi-year plan extending roughly to 20, anticipate conflict involving Iran, Lebanon, and Judea and Samaria. According to Channel 12 News, a senior Israeli official told the outlet that while Jerusalem was refusing to comment on the protests in Iran, which entered their 5th day on Thursday, the political echelon sees it as a dramatic event. It is too early to know the consequences, officials told the outlet. The report said that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held discussions and consultations regarding the demonstrations during his visit to the United States, which, of course, was scheduled to end today, right? The IDF's developing war plans reportedly include the possibility that the Islamic regime's leaders will decide to attack the Jewish state to prevent their overthrow at the hands of the Iranian people. And that's what they've got to worry about, because they they turn on their own people, but they also like want to make themselves look good in the world, so they'll deflect. That's what happens to Abbas. Every time they say, well, we need to have elections, and he deflects and then goes and tries to start a war. Oh, I've got to be a wartime president, right? Mm-hmm. A large-scale surprise war with Tehran and its regional terror proxies could, for the first time, also include Israeli attacks in and from outer space, according to the report. Netanyahu told Newsmax on Tuesday that Iran's leaders have robbed their people of the future and that change would come from within. It's up to the Iranian people, and we understand what they're going through, and we're very sympathetic to them, he told the channel. The regime's leadership is cracking down on expressions of widespread dissent over the country's spiraling economic crisis, which has left the national currency at an all-time low of 1.4 million rials, I guess they call it, R-I-A-L-S, rials,
that's a currency,
to the U.S. dollar.
Yeah.
So it takes 1 million rials, a little over 1 million rials, to equal $1 U.S.
Wow.
Iran International reported that the crackdown on protesters continued on Thursday morning, with regime forces opening fire and deploying tear gas at Tehran's central fruit and vegetable market. Iranian authorities confirmed on Thursday that a member of the Basij, a paramilitary force within Tehran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was killed during a rally in the country's western Loristan province. The Basij member was martyred at the hands of rioters during protests in this city in defense of public order, a local official said. Another 13 Basij members and police officers reportedly suffered injuries. A government building in the country's south was also vandalized by demonstrators. Iran has seen repeated waves of protests since 2009 over a host of issues, including religious oppression practiced by its theocratic rulers. The latest have reportedly become the biggest protest since 2022, when the death of Masa Amini, 22, in regime custody triggered mass rallies. Ali Shoukhani, an advisor and representative of the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, earlier this week alluded to an attack in the wake of the meeting between Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump. Under Iran's defense doctrine, some responses are determined even before the threats reach the implementation stage. Shamkhani wrote in Hebrew on X. He added, Iran's missile and defense capabilities are uncontrollable and do not require authorization. Any aggression will be met with a severe, immediate, and unexpected response. It appears shortly after Trump said he would knock the hell out of Iran, the regime attempted to rebuild nuclear sites targeted in June. So that is simmering over there, right? So, and then let's just go over quickly here what Amir is on a self-imposed sabbatical. So it says here, howdy from Parker, Colorado, right at the foot of the majestic Rocky Mountains. As I look out my office window, I have a perfect view of the semi-white peaks and the snow-barren lower hills. It's January 1 today, and it appears that Colorado has forgotten how to snow. While other parts of the country are trying to dig themselves out from blizzards or dry themselves from flooding, we seem to be stuck in permanent autumn. In fact, for the first time ever, I was able to grill steaks outdoors for Christmas dinner. Hey, Syracuse, mind sending a little of your snow our way?
Yeah.
So this is somebody that I think this might be that pastor. I don't think I have the end of this copied, but he steps in for Amir. I think they do a thing together that they talk about. It says, for those of you who follow Amir online, you know that he is on a self-imposed 10-day break from producing videos and posting online. That's why you have me, okay, it says here, senior writer and editor Steve Yawn at the newsletter helm today. So when those of us working with Behold Israel heard Amir say he was stepping back for a short time, there was much rejoicing. Behold, Israel is a family, and we see how incredibly hard he works. We pray for him, we worry over him, and when we hear that he is taking a short breather, we all let out a sigh of relief. And he does much of that. I don't think he quite has the same Trumpian stamina, but he has been awake. I can tell at times around the clock. over there in Israel, especially when things were when all of the mortars were falling. He says, but short breather doesn't mean he is lounging on his home porch, gazing lazily at the beautiful vista of the Jezreel Valley. He is still working, but he is temporarily cutting out a significant portion of his regular workload so that he can focus on preparing himself for what is scheduled to be his busiest year ever. And so then they encourage everybody to follow him. And today, he says here, today begins a new year. There are some important stories to relate to you. But at Behold Israel, we don't want this important moment to slip past. Typically, this is a day of resolutions. I'm going to read my Bible more. I'm going to pray every day. I'm going to start tithing to my church. These are all great things that should be pursued with constancy and vigor. And what we'd like to encourage you with, however, is a much simpler challenge. Dr. Rick Yon, Behold Israel's elder statesman, has told us that he begins each day with a simple prayer. Lord, use me to touch someone's life today. It's not a complicated petition. It's absent of intricate theology and fancy church language. Instead, it's the humble plea of an 88-year-old man whose greatest desire is to be used by God in the life of at least one person each and every day. And so, so he goes on to talk about him. But let's run on to some of the stories here. Israel's unprecedented recognition of Somaliland. You can't read the news these days without hearing about Somalia. Not only do Somali immigrants seem to be flooding cities like Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Columbus, Ohio. Yes, they're doing more in Columbus, Ohio. I guess they've got daycares there that are funneling money. But they appear to have been running criminal schemes like bilking taxpayers of billions of social welfare dollars. Minnesota politicians like Ilhan Omar and Tim Walz are knee-deep in the scandal. In fact, I had sent something to Jim about a woman who is involved in this, a Democrat. She's trying to block any investigation into this.
Yeah, she's a senator in Washington. I'm not sure she's from that state though. So,
but she's trying to block any investigation into any of that.
Oh my!
Her name is Lisa Wellman. She's a Democrat senator, and it doesn't say what state she's from. I'm going to find that out.
But she's proposed this thing that would block all of investigation into any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which, I said, well, it makes sense because evidently these people, these Democrats, they don't want their gravy train stopped.
She is from the state of Washington.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And
imagine that.
Yeah. So
the liberal state of Washington.
Yes.
So they want to be able to continue to bilk taxpayers out of billions and billions of dollars.
Right.
They get their millions and millions out of teachers' unions. Well, this is another way to get tax dollars funneled back into the Democrat Party and then, to continue their stuff.
And then Tim Walz takes the stage and he says, our president's threatening to hold up federal aid. Well, do you know what programs, you know what that funds, the regular guy isn't going to be able to get his food stamps. And I'm like, yeah, because you're not doing your job right.
No,
dummy. And I'm cleaning up my language for what I want to say.
Yeah.
But the gist of it is dummy.
Right. He said, then suddenly news came out about Israel and Somaliland, and it's easy to get confused. Most of what people know about Somalia, they learned Black Hawk Down.
Yep.
How are Somalia and Somaliland related, if at all? Let me give you a little of Amir's premiere on Somaliland and then tell you why it matters so much. Somalia is a federation of 7 semi-autonomous republics that are loosely held together with the governmental version of chewing gum and thread. The clearest short explanation of the country's politics was posted by Amir on his Telegram channel, and it is an important read. The northwesternmost republic in Somalia is Somaliland. I'm trying to say it. And it's hard to say Somalia and Somaliland back to back. And they have been existing under de facto independence for 3.5 decades. Over the years, the United States, Taiwan, the UAE, Ethiopia, and numerous other African and European nations have established ties with the republic. But on December 26th, Israel was the first United Nations country to officially recognize the independent nation of Somaliland. This momentous step caused immediate action. In Somaliland, the population rejoiced, and Muslims everywhere were seen celebrating the nation of Israel and praying over Israeli flags. Now that's interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, 22 Muslim countries insisted or issued a joint condemnation of Israel's action. Interestingly, though, was that the Abraham Accord countries of Morocco, Bahrain, and the UAE refrained from joining in the condemnation. Why did Israel do this? It's part of a sophisticated U.S. maneuver that was executed through Netanyahu to further Washington's day after plans for Gaza. A key sticking point in Trump's plan was where to send the Gazans who no longer desire to live in their war-ravaged region. Somaliland said, hey, you give us official recognition and we'll gladly take them off your hands.
Wow. Is this or is this not sounding like a Peanuts cartoon?
Man.
I mean, it's because I was watching a Charlie Brown Christmas on Christmas Eve, right? And, Lucy is sitting there and she's like, and you know about all the commercialism in Christmas, Charlie Brown. Yeah. It's all run by a New York syndicate.
Right.
And while she's reading this, I'm like, yeah, Jim, it's all run by a New York syndicate with Mamdani.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says, it was a brilliant move that solved a seemingly unresolvable problem. The Houthis are already threatening retaliation for the recognition, and Turkey, along with many other Muslim nations, are stomping and fuming.
Yeah.
Right? For the next few months, expect to see Somaliland prominent within your news streams.
Very interesting.
So, and it says here, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu landed in Florida on Monday and soon after met with the family of fallen hostage Master Sergeant Ron Gavili. Gavili is the one hostage whose remains are yet to be returned by Hamas. This was the first meeting in an itinerary that would have him connecting with numerous groups and politicians, foremost of whom is President Trump. The discussions of Netanyahu and Trump covered numerous subjects, some of which have been part of ongoing talks. The deadline for Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah has expired, which opens the door for direct action from Israel. Hamas, Iran, and Yemen are also on Israel's 2026 hit list, and the green light has been given by Trump. In addition, Somaliland was talked through, among other subjects. Yesterday, the prime minister met with evangelical leaders before going to Bal Harbor Synagogue in Miami for an event. He will he left for Israel this afternoon. So Israel entered a new stage of warfare when the Or Itan laser air defense system was delivered to the Israeli Air Force on Monday. A project of Israeli Defense Forces and Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, this anti-missile weapon, also known as the Iron Beam, is a boon for Israel's protection against missiles and UAVs. The Or Itan owes its name to Captain Itan Oster, who fell in battle in southern Lebanon during the war. So they have Operation the Iron Beam.
Yeah, Q. Paul Harvey. And this Iron Beam is at 1/8 the cost of a regular ICBM missile.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. It is apparent to all in Iran that the Islamic regime ruling their country is far more interested in destroying Israel than it is in providing an environment in which its own population can survive. The land is parched, the economy has collapsed, the electrical grid is quite literally an on again, off again proposition, yet somehow progress continues to be made in the nuclear weapons program and steady support is doled out for the plethora of terrorist proxies in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. I wonder what they're using to pay them. Because if their currency, how much do they have American dollars stored up?
Well, they may, because Barack Obama gave them a whole bunch.
Oh, sure.
So is that what they're using to pay these people?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it lasted because they were using that $150 billion to, send missiles and bombs over the Palestinians so they could lob them over the West Wall. So I just don't think I think it's some other money. Yeah, China maybe, because China made a deal with Iran too.
So they must be demanding U.S. dollars because their stuff is like it takes over $1 million to make $1.
Right.
There are even recent reports of a new focus on the development of biological and chemical warheads for the nation's long-range missiles. I bet they're asking to be paid in U.S. dollars when they do this and give it to Russia and China and all of that.
Sure.
Or, the citizens have had enough. Protests have broken out across the nation against the Ayatollahs and their minions. In Tehran, people have been forced to retreat from the angry masses. The question is whether there is enough unity and staying power within the frustrated mob. If the rebellious resolve begins to fracture, the regime will be able to quell this uprising just as they have done with the many they've put down in the past.
Didn't you just say that they're working on chemical weapons there? Chemical and biological weapons? I think you just said that.
Yeah,
Well, in
development
Iran,
of biological and chemical warheads.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's exactly what one of the Bible codes said.
Well, that's exactly what Iraq did, and moved them over to Syria, and Syria was using it on their own people.
Right.
So this isn't hard to do.
Right. A major military work plan has been agreed to between Greece, Cyprus, and Israel. This includes joint exercises, training, work groups across a range of fields, and strategic military dialogue on issues of shared interest. Also agreed to were bilateral deals directly between Israel and the two countries. The one nation that is most angry about this deepening of relationships is Turkey. Turkey is increasingly coming to the fore here.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Who is an enemy of each of them. This is just one more piece of kindling that will grow the Turkish fire that will finally blaze in the coming Ezekiel 38 war.
He thinks Turkey's going to be a part of it.
Yes. So that's a little bit of the update of things going on there. This is a newspaper called Today, the Bible and You, and it's put out monthly by John Barella. I dropped the front page here. Where's the front page? And I was reading it, and I had called Richard because I said, wait a minute now. And one of the things, I can't read this, but he quotes Daniel 9:27, which it says here, he's the making a covenant, the causing the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, that scripture. And he talks about as the toes of feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be strongly partly strong, partly broken. That's also from Daniel chapter 2, verse 42 through 44. And this is what I was saying when I first heard these words. I said, oh, this looks like more, and he agrees with me here. This looks more like the alignment that's talked about the 10 kings in the end time. So it says here, when I started hearing about a peace board headed up by Donald Trump, I said, well, wait a minute. So he says, is the tribulation framework unraveling right before our eyes? And he says, a global peace board, Middle East peace, and Bible prophecy unfurling everywhere. We are witnessing the tribulation framework being formed before our eyes. The peace agreement signed by President Trump and the Middle East leaders and the United Nations Security goes over here. Council voting to approve President Trump's peace plan is what the prophet Ezekiel declared would come alive after more than 2,600 years. Now, this is his commentary on this, right? I mean, I thought it was like, whoa. Again, the United Nations doesn't do anything with the United States.
Right.
But this they voted for.
Right.
Okay? And then he quotes Ezekiel, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, what is this proverb that you have in the land of Israel, saying, the days are prolonged and every vision fails? Tell them before, thus says the Lord God, I will make this proverb to cease, and they shall no more use it as a proverb in Israel, but they shall say unto them, the days are at hand, and the effect of every vision, for there shall be no more any vain vision, nor flattering divination within the house of Israel. For Lord, I will speak, and the word that I shall speak shall pass. It shall be no more prolonged, for in your days. Ezekiel 20, that's 12:21 through 25. It says here, the United Nations Security Council adopted a United States resolution to authorize an international stabilization force for Gaza and back the Trump administration's peace plan, a significant early step toward rebuilding the destroyed enclave. Many of the countries the U.S. has hoped will contribute troops and funds to the project indicated to Washington that they would not do so absent the United Nations backing. Okay? Well, they've got that now. President Trump will be the chairman of the Special Board of Peace. President Trump posted on his Truth Social and that the board will include the world's most powerful and respected leaders. This will go down as one of the biggest approvals in the history of the United Nations, President Donald Trump said on Truth Social, adding that the names of the members of a board to oversee the effort, which he named the Board of Peace, will be announced in the coming weeks, as well as many more exciting announcements. I wonder what day that happened on.
I don't know.
Because, we know that Jonathan Kahn can reveal these things and I don't know. I don't know when, Mamdani was sworn in last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what this particular Hebrew day is and if it's prominent in history.
Oh, I'm sure we'll find out.
But when I see this, it's like, I think of those things immediately. What day did that happen? I wonder what it means, right?
Yep.
This is a clear picture of what God tells us in Daniel 2:42-43. As the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas you saw iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. This accurately describes United Nations leaders. They do not mingle or cleave together, even as iron is not mixed with clay. We opened the verse with he, the prince that is to come, Antichrist, shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, 7 years, the tribulation period. And in the middle of the week, after 3.5 years, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate even until the consummation. And that determined shall pour out upon the desolate. Daniel 9:27. The Board of Peace could strengthen an already existing agreement as it moves from the first day it was implemented and made even stronger at the end of the first 3.5 years of the treaty. The Board of Peace could actually be the 10 horns mentioned in the book of Revelation 17. One of those 10 horns could be the king of Saudi Arabia, who recently visited the White House in November. I mean, we're just speculating. The Special Board of Peace could be the group mentioned in Revelation 17:12-13, and the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive their power as kings 1 hour with the beast.
Well, this could be something that Donald Trump sets up in good faith.
Yes.
But it's taken over by the world, one world government.
Oh, yeah. It's like everything else.
Yeah.
Whenever you do something, how could a Democrat, take this and run with it?
Right.
Yeah. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. When I always heard the prophecy teachers teach that the European Union is going to fulfill this, it didn't make sense.
Right.
We definitely on that figure that Daniel saw had 2 legs and 2 feet. Okay, they're separate. They're 2 independent. The feet and with the 10 toes were made out of iron and clay, east and west.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can't have the European Union because they're not east and west.
Right.
They're totally west.
Right.
You got to have east. Right. So what have we got with this Board of Peace? I don't know who all is going to come together.
Right.
They haven't said that anybody's joined yet. Exactly.
Right.
But it's interesting. So it seems like, okay, so the big question now is, are we seeing the 10 kings forming?
Possibly.
The Board of Peace does not have the 10 members announced or even the number. As the Bible suggests, they will arise quickly and will be given king status while they are with the beast for 1 hour. That refers to a short time. This is why the new Board of Peace with President Trump as its chairman demands our attention. It's why it caught my attention. A Board of Peace.
Yeah.
Bible prophecy have always taught that we would see stage setting events like this prior to the rapture.
Could I interject something?
Yes.
I would like the audience to know that we are now in as of today, exactly 2,000 years from the time that Jesus appeared on the scene and started his ministry, because he started it in 26 AD. And if we add 2,000 years to that, we're in 2026. Mm-hmm. So we're in a very momentous period of time here. It's just, I don't know exactly what's beginning and what's starting and how it's going to all fill out. But this could be a very interesting starting point here.
Right.
It's coming to gel right at the beginning of 2026.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
So he said, let's be clear. We do not believe President Trump is the Antichrist. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Because in Daniel 11:37, it says he does not qualify biblically. God tells us, neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. Some qualifications of the Antichrist are that he will not regard or respect any religious system. The phrase, the God of his fathers, brings some to conclude that this Antichrist will be a Jew, but will have no respect for his religious heritage. I know that
that's actually a mistranslation from the King James. It's the gods of his fathers.
Right. Yeah. And I know that Mark Biltz thinks that the Antichrist is probably going to be a Christian.
Yeah.
He said, how is he going to deceive the Christians?
Yeah.
If he's not a Christian, we don't know.
Well, I think that there will be, if you look at the Christians as a whole, you've got the true Christians and you got the fake Christians.
Right.
And I would say the fake are probably 85% of what's in the church today. So that when the real Christians are gone, all of a sudden, all you got are the fake Christians here.
Right.
Well, who did Barack Hussein Obama, what did he call himself while he was in office? He said this wasn't a Christian nation anymore, but he called a Christian.
Right.
But he talked about the call to prayer and everything else. And Stephanopoulos actually in an interview said he was like, being a Muslim. He says, no, you mean being a Christian. Oh, yeah, being a Christian.
Yeah. And it says here, the phrase, the desire of women may be, he says here, this is kind of, the phrase, the desire of women may be the one thing that disqualifies President Trump as the Antichrist.
He has a desire for women.
Yeah.
Most biblical scholars believe that this Antichrist will have no sexual desire for women and could perhaps even be a homosexual.
I'm not going to talk about Obama anymore in that.
No. Historical interpretations often associate the Antichrist with moral decay, and some link to homosexuality. Certain biblical passages are interpreted by some as suggesting non-heteronormative traits in the Antichrist and perversions that 2 Thessalonians 2:4 reveals the belief ideology of the Antichrist, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So, the association may be what we are seeing in the society regarding transgender, LGBTQ, and other perverted ideologies.
Right.
The Antichrist is often depicted as a figure who subverts societal norms, which may include sexual norms.
Right.
This is another birth pang of the many emerging daily. If the Board of Peace is eventually made up of the 10 most powerful and respected leaders in the world, catch your breath. Since the rapture takes place before the tribulation starts, you can readily see how close we are when our Lord Jesus will fulfill his promise to return for us and take us to the place he went to prepare for us. It is time to give heed to the words of our Lord Jesus given to us in Luke 21:36. Watch you therefore and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. Our Lord Jesus only came to this earth to save sinners who will escape the terrible judgments from God upon the earth. We are promised in 1 John 1:7, the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, God's Son, cleanses us from all sin. So I just thought that was very interesting because it's like, ooh, somebody said the same thing that I was saying. And I can't remember in here. He said something and it led us into a discussion, and now I can't find the story. But anyway, we'll think about it later. Remember, I called you up, said he said something going to be, and I said, we had that whole discussion. Now I can't remember. It was about, and you said you just, I don't agree with him on that.
Oh, well, we were talking on that discussion about the fact that the person that you were reading the article from was talking about Jesus was crucified in 32 AD. And I might just interject something here to the audience. If you actually take a look at the 11 Passovers during the time that Pilate was in office, then that's what you have to concentrate on.
Oh,
there are only 2 years in that 11-year period of time which fulfills all the parameters that were given in the Bible. First of all, Passover had to begin on a Thursday night, which turns into Friday, which becomes the Passover dinner, the 15th, and then the next day is the high Sabbath, and that's exactly that situation. But it only occurs in 27 AD 27 and AD 30. So those are the only 2 years that it's possible that Jesus could have died in. And we know that he didn't die in 27 because his ministry, he was probably baptized in 26, started his ministry in 27, and then was crucified.
Yeah, this was the paragraph. It's from a article titled "Prophecy Converging: The Third Temple, the 10 Horns, and Now Wormwood on Its Way."
Right.
And it's about Apophis.
Apophis.
Yeah. But in here he said they predicted the timing of his coming. They being the Essenes, he says. They predicted the Messiah would come during the reign of a king named Herod who would start righteous but turn evil. Exactly what happened. He murdered his own family members and infants of Bethlehem and ruled at the time of Yeshua, Jesus. And it says here, and this is what I was saying, I called Richard about. The Essenes also predicted the Messiah would die in 32 AD. And I said, did the Essenes even predict his death?
No, they did not.
I thought they were looking, and I had to sit there and think about it. It's like, the Jews, and I would imagine the Essenes included, I'm not an expert, somebody would have to tell me, they were looking for a conquering Messiah.
Right.
They weren't looking for somebody dying. Right? They had Messiah ben Joseph, Messiah ben David, right? The two ideas. Messiah ben Joseph was the suffering Messiah,
right?
But and that's what they and part of when they asked Yeshua, I think I've heard somebody explain when John the Baptist was asking Jesus, "Are you he?" I mean, basically, are you the Messiah, or do we look for another?
Right.
He was asking him, are you Messiah ben David, or do we look for another?
Right.
Because John the Baptist was about to be beheaded, right?
Right.
So he was looking for a conquering Messiah to return to take over the government. That was they couldn't mesh from the Old Testament the things said about the two Messiahs.
Yeah, they couldn't come up with the fact that he could be resurrected.
Yeah, they couldn't figure out that the Messiah could die, be resurrected, and come back. So anyway, that was the statement made here. It says here, the Essenes also predicted the Messiah would die in 32 AD, and it's like, I don't think
the Essenes never predicted that. What they did say is that we think the Messiah is going to come between 26 and 33.
Because it says here, most Bible scholars, the year was 30 to 33 AD.
Yeah.
When, he was talking about the death. And it says the Essenes wrote this 150 years before Jesus was born, teaching that the Messiah would not die only for the Jewish people, but for the Gentiles also. I didn't know that they had anything to say about Yeshua's death.
Yeah.
It says here, they also taught that after the death of Messiah, there would be an age of grace that would last 2,000 years. They taught that during this time, the message of salvation would also go to the Gentiles. Did they really?
No, I'm rereading the book by Ken Johnson, which talks about the secrets of the Essenes, and I read it several years ago. I don't remember all the details of the book, but I went back and started rereading some of it as a result of our conversation. And excuse me, it's very clear that the Essenes never predicted his death date. What they did predict is they thought the Messiah would show up within a certain period of time. And they should have been able to predict that based upon their current knowledge or their closeness to the prophecy of Daniel. And they should be able to figure out when that was going to occur within a certain time frame.
Right.
Well, they did. They figured it out. It was going to be between 26 and 33. He was going to appear on the scene.
Right.
And he did. He appeared in 26. Yeah. So anybody that tells you that Jesus was crucified in 32, it's absolutely impossible because the Passover dates don't line up properly in 32, 31, or 33. The only time they line up, as just said, is in AD 27 and AD 30. That's it.
And so we're going to go with 80-30 because the number 40 is very important.
Right.
In
God's program.
Absolutely. And he gave the Jewish people 40 years.
40 years to decide who Jesus was, whether or not he was demonically possessed or not.
Right. And then he put his judgment, and that's when the temple was destroyed in 70 AD.
Just like he gave the Israelites in the wilderness 40 years.
40 years.
And Jesus was tempted for 40 days.
Right.
So 40 is a time of testing with God. And that's exactly what occurred when Jesus died. There were 40 years for the Jews to make up their mind. And then all of a sudden the temple was destroyed.
Yep. And then he also writes in here, just for me to put in on this. I mean, I appreciate this, but I think that there's some problems in there.
One other point about that. Mm-hmm. By the way, the Talmud actually says that they called him Yeshu. It was a slur on his name.
Right.
That Yeshu was actually killed 40 years before the temple was destroyed.
Right. Rabbi Vern talks about that.
Yeah.
And what does Yeshu mean? It's a derogatory statement.
It's a derogatory term.
Right.
Because they won't say his name.
Right.
As Yeshua.
Right.
It says, what are we looking at? An asteroid named after the Egyptian god of chaos, Apophis. This is heading for a collision with Earth. This is predicted to happen on April 13th, 2029.
Right.
God predicts a biblical prophecy of a star called wormwood falling from heaven and contaminating fresh water sources. When we can see with our eyes these major prophecies converging together in line with Bible prophecy, we should pay close attention. It cannot all be happening by coincidence. And they said this stone will bring an end to the time of the Gentiles.
Right.
And the final Gentile world power of Nebuchadnezzar's image and usher in the kingdom of God upon the earth when all the Jews will worship our Lord Jesus as Messiah. So, but anyway, they did put the date in there, April 13th, 2029. Yeah. Now, so it's, but I had to when I was reading that, I was like, I don't think this is exactly right. So, but that's that. Now, I promised everybody I'd try to get to Ezekiel 38:39 teaching.
Well, you got time.
Man, for that was written. This is the Perry Stone Study Bible. I have officially finished reading the Perry Stone Study Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. I did that on Wednesday because it was my complete Bible year. So anyway, but he has, of course, all of these commentaries in this. And so he has in here his commentary on the coming battle of Gog of Magog from Ezekiel 38 and 39. And I just think, now there's a lot of interesting things in here. Maybe later on also I'll bring out some of his commentary about the Antichrist and different things that he has. But here we go. We'll get to it now. Chapters Ezekiel 38 and 39. Again, this is Perry Stone writing. This is his, it's in this particular instance, it's in Ezekiel in depth, which if you look at how much he's written, after Ezekiel. It's a fairly long commentary. It starts here and it goes all the way through over to here. It's I'm trying to see how many pages it is. So this is all of his commentary. He goes from page 1306 to page 1323 commenting about Ezekiel in the book of Ezekiel. So
Ezekiel was a major prophet.
It was major. So here we go. And he says Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39 are perhaps the most important prediction of war for our time.
Right.
As a careful study of this passage indicates that this major battle has not yet occurred. In addition, the alignment of nations that is mentioned in these chapters is certainly clear and understandable in the present day. Ezekiel predicts that a coalition of nations surrounding Israel will rise up and ascend like a cloud to cover the land. And that's from Ezekiel 38:9. Entering Israel on the north mountains bordering Lebanon and Syria, called the Bashan. That's in chapter 39:18.
You want me to comment about that cloud business right now?
Yeah, we could. And east. Let me finish the sentence. And east of the Dead Sea, 39:11, to take the spoil, 38:13. However, this coalition of Israel's enemies will be utterly defeated by divine interventions. Scholars refer to this situation as the Battle of Gog and Magog, and other more contemporary commentators often call it World War III. So,
well, only thing I was going to say is that verse 9, we're talking about Ezekiel 38:9, where it says that they will come upon the land like a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting and meditating on that, and all of a sudden it just occurred to me that almost sounds like a cloud of drones coming in and attacking the nation. Well, where have we seen this before? It's happened twice already to Israel. And Iran sends in hundreds of drones, and so far they've not been able to do a lot of damage to Israel because Israel is capable of shooting them down.
Right.
So,
and of course they are now deploying the Iron Beam in addition to the Iron Dome.
Right.
They're developing all sorts of technology. The problem with the Iron Beam is cloud cover.
Right.
Literal cloud cover. It scatters the beam. So that's why they have to have multiple options for protection. But anyways, there's three common questions often arise when examining these two chapters. One, who is Gog? Two, what does his being called a chief prince mean? And three, what countries comprise the coalition nations, including the enemies from the north, who will engage in the battle? And he says here, the name Gog appears in Ezekiel 9 times in 7 verses, and he lists them here. And God foretold the former prophets about him. This name is first mentioned in 1 Chronicles 5:4 as a descendant of Reuben, Jacob's first son. Numerous theories exist about the meaning of Gog, especially the name itself. In ancient cuneiform tablets, the chief warrior of the Scythians is called Gaagi, which some think is linked with the name Gog. These warriors drank from human skulls. They used human skin to hold water. They even used human skins for napkins. They were totally evil, dangerous warriors. Among the ancient Sumerians who lived in the land of Mesopotamia, the inhabitants had a word Gug, which meant darkness. Thus, a form of the word Gog could refer to a spirit of darkness directing the minds of Israel's enemies, as these enemies think an evil thought, from Ezekiel 38:10, when they plot a coalition attack. It has also been noted that among the Eastern European nations, including Russia, the surname Gog can be a family name, as thousands of families with the last name Gog, G-O-G, live in that region of the world today. More likely, Gog is not a man, but is the name of a strong principality spirit. And he said, see Ephesians 6:12, that directs this massive army through supernatural power. This theory that Gog is a spirit and not just a man can be undergirded when realizing that this war, according to most scholars, occurs in the last days after Israel is restored as a nation and dwelling safely. from Ezekiel 38, 8 and 11. Yet the same name Gog appears again at the end of the 1,000-year reign of Messiah. After Satan is loosed for a season, see Revelation 27 through 9. Thus, this Gog is identified by name twice, with at least 1,000 years between the two prophetic wars. John's vision indicates a final battle with Satan, Gog, and Magog at the end of Christ's millennial reign. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan will be loosed out of his prison, and he shall go out to deceive nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up to the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about and the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. This is from Revelation 20, 7 through 9. Notice the difference between the Gog battle mentioned in Ezekiel 38 and 39 and the Gog war mentioned in Revelation 27 through 9. Now, he's got them both here. In Ezekiel, it's Gog is the chief priest. In Revelation, Satan himself directs the battle. In Ezekiel, it occurs on the mountains of Israel, and in Revelation, it occurs at the city of Jerusalem. In Ezekiel, to take a spoil of cattle, gold, and goods, and in Revelation, to conquer the saints and Christ in Jerusalem. So it's actually fighting the Messiah himself. It takes 7 years to burn the weapons in the Ezekiel war. A judgment in heaven follows the final battle in Revelation. An Islamic coalition surrounds Israel, in his opinion here, in Ezekiel. The nations come from the four corners of the earth in Revelation. Mm-hmm. So the best interpretation is that Gog is a strong demonic spirit ruling over and rising up from the nations north of Israel. Note that Ezekiel calls Gog the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. In Ephesians 2:2, Paul identifies Satan as the prince of power of the air. In Daniel 10:13, prince of Persia hinders Daniel's answer to prayer, and later this same prince is joined by another strong spirit identified as the prince of Grecia from Daniel 10:20. This was a cosmic conflict whose heavenly warfare impacted the rise and fall of leaders in Babylon and Greece. Gog could be classified as one of the strong prince spirits from the north, as he is called a chief prince, because the word chief in Ezekiel 38:2 is Hebrew is Rosh. Some scholars have attempted to link the word Rosh to Russia, interpreting the word as a prophetic reference to Russia's coming down from the north against Israel. However, Rosh, and it's spelled here, it's an R-O with an apostrophe S-H. So it's like Rosh. It's kind of like a little bit of a separation between that. Is the common Hebrew word translated as head about 276 times in the Old Testament. In the case of Gog as a chief prince, this refers to Gog's leadership and control over the coalition of nations as the head of the invaders. It is not a reference to Russia, at least according to the actual Hebraic meaning of the word. Okay. In Ephesians 6:12, the principalities are the highest-ranking spirits working under Satan's direct supervision in his kingdom. Gog appears to be one of those spirits directing an assault against Israel. When to rule on earth, Gog will be bound in the abyss with Satan and his other spirit rebels during the 1,000-year reign, later to be loosed at the end of the 1,000 years, with Satan directing a second assault to undermine the plan and the people of God. The two wars of Ezekiel 38 and 39 and the war mentioned in Revelation 27 through 9 are clearly different and occur at two different times under entirely different circumstances. So I think some biblical prophecy people have tried to combine them.
One of the interesting things that Dr. Fruchtenbaum mentioned when discussing this particular chapter of Ezekiel is that he thought Gog was a title of a person like Pharaoh, mm-hmm. or like Caesar or like Tsar, so that it's a title of his authority
Right.
And not necessarily the name of a person or, well, it could be, he could be spiritually motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But in other words, in Dr. Fruchtenbaum's book, The Footsteps of the Messiah, he classifies this person as a person like Pharaoh, who's in charge of the troops in the land of Magog.
Right.
Okay.
And this is kind of saying that the Gog is like a spiritual entity that's controlling something and leading this battle.
Right. It could be both.
It could be both. Right. And he says, where is the land of Magog? Various opinions exist concerning the location of the land of Magog. For example, the Great Wall of China has been called by some Sud Yogog et Magog, which interpreted means the rampart of Gog and Magog. Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
The Jewish historian Josephus wrote that Magog was founded the Mongolians named after him, but were also named by the Greeks and called the Scythians. So Josephus wrote that Magog founded the Magogians. I'm sorry, not Mongolians, Magogians. I didn't say it right. Named after him. So there was a person named Magog.
Mm-hmm.
But they were also named by the Greeks and called the Scythians. In the 1st century, Philo identified Magog with the region in the southern part of Russia. This is interesting considering that when the Soviet Union broke apart in the late 1980s and early 1990s, there were several nations in the southern Russia that were once part of the Ottoman Turkish Empire and are populated with a majority of Muslims. These former Soviet states are today located in Russia and are directly north and northwest of Jerusalem and Israel. They include Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, it's hard for me to say it, Kyrgyzstan, I think, Azerbaijan, Tajikistan, and states linked to the Russian Federation. Okay. The Islamic link to the nations involved in the Ezekiel battle is undeniable. Ezekiel begins by naming Persia, the ancient name dating back to the 9th century BC of the nation now known as Iran. Those living today in Persia call themselves Persians. The name Iran is a more modern name given to the territory in 1935, although names Persia and Iran are used interchangeably. Ezekiel also lists the nations of Ethiopia in verse 5. This country retains the same name today. The older name for the part of the Horn of Africa is Cush, and in Ezekiel's time, it included not only Ethiopia but also the southern Nile Valley, including the Sudan, which is heavily Muslim now, I think, right? Ezekiel continued expanding his list, adding the third nation in the Horn of Africa, Libya. These three nations, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya, are all modern nations, and scholars have no question as to their location, their Islamic structures, and governments. The Ezekiel war file continues with Gomer. Early writings indicate that Gomer is linked with the Gomerites or the ancient, it's spelled Cimmerin, so it's like Cimmerians or something like that, Cimmerians, who were expelled from southern Turkey in 700 BC. In the Babylonian Talmud and in Genesis 10:3, the biblical Gomer was father of Ashkenaz and is often rendered Germania or Germany.
Germania.
So the territory was established in an area between the Rhine and Danube rivers. Gomer would have thus been part of the many Germanic tribes scattered in sections of Europe. Ezekiel adds another unit, the house of Togarmah, as one who joins the coalition. After much research, many prophetic scholars believe Togarmah in Ezekiel's day to be Cappadocia, which is modern-day Turkey. There was a city known as Togarmah and Takarma existing in this region. Turkey is located directly north of Israel, and according to my military sources in Israel, Turkey is the country that could provide the greatest future threat to Israel due to their strength, location, and military technology.
They have a very strong army.
Yep. They also happen to be part of NATO, which makes it complicated.
Yeah. And Trump just sold them a whole bunch of, invisible airplanes.
Stealth planes.
F-35s.
F-35s.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
The important point of Ezekiel's identification of these nations is that all the nations joining together in the assault on the mountains of Israel are presently all strong Islamic countries with a majority of their population being very anti-Semitic and continually projecting negative political feelings toward the state. In the early 20th century, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya were all friendly toward the West, and some had a Jewish population, which began departing out of these former modern Islamic nations as soon after Israel became a nation in 1948. Modern history reveals that Russia was the leading seller of military weapons, such as tanks, jeeps, missiles, and guns that the Arab nations used during the 1948, 1956, 1967, and 1993 wars. Today, Russia continues to support the enemy nations surrounding Israel and has strong oil, gas, and technology contracts with Syria, Iran, Egypt, Libya, and many of the nations that will be in this invasion. Thus, Russia will be more than likely, porter of the war, at least through the weapons and battle strategies.
Bugs Bunny there for a minute.
Yeah, it just didn't want to come out.
Strategy.
Yeah, strategies. Okay, didn't want to come out. And the battle will take place in Israel, meaning that the war could not have occurred between the destruction of Jerusalem 70 AD and 1948. That's important. Whoops. Okay, sorry about that. Let me just try to end that. And it says here, so in other words, Israel was not a nation, and the Jews did not control the government until Israel was restored as a nation in 1948, right? So Ezekiel names two locations where the battle will become most intense: the Bashan, I've been there, and the Valley of the Passengers on the east side of the Dead Sea. Bashan is north of Israel, and the Valley of the Passengers is a valley between two mountains just north on the east side of the Dead Sea. Both the Bashan and the area east of the sea have massive mountains and mountain ranges for miles. It's true. This is significant because chapters 38 and 39 mention the mountains of Israel in 6 verses as places where the armies will sweep into Israeli territory. The Bashan is located east of the Jordan River. The Golan was an early town located in the Bashan region. The entire landmass that begins north of the Sea of Galilee and today borders Lebanon and Syria is also called the Golan Heights. I've been there too. Anyway, oddly, the Hebrew word for Golan is Golah and can mean an exile or a removing, implying a region of struggle for exiles of Israel. The Israelis annexed the area after the 1967 Six-Day War. That action has been a source of contention with Syria. And I think recently I believe Donald Trump has reiterated that he is supporting Israel, keeping that region.
Right.
Yep.
They have to have that for their security.
Yeah.
Yep. And that Bibi saved Israel from the situation that it was in. I think that, I kind of disagree a little bit. I think he had a hand, as did all the politicians in Israel on October 7th. But from that point forward, I think they'd have been safe if they didn't have him.
Right. Right.
So
the east side of the sea here refers to the Dead Sea, and the mountains are today located at Jordan River on the east bank. The word for the Valley of Passengers in Hebrew is Ha-Oborim, called Abarim in Numbers 27:12. This was the part of the area where the ancient tribes and caravans traveled when coming from Jordan to Israel. It is located across from Jericho and above the northern section of the Dead Sea. Ezekiel said the armies will fall upon an open field. In the Bashan, there are miles of open fields between numerous mountain ranges, along with a long valley called the Jordan Valley, where the Jordan River winds through the border of Israel and Jordan. Today, the ruins of former military encampments now sit silently buried in the sandy, dusty mounds of dirt near Jericho in the West Bank. We call it Judea and Samaria. The number of deaths at the Valley of the Passengers implies that a huge army will come through or march in the lower mountain ranges of Israel's neighbor, the country of Jordan, at the time of this war. The invaders in this coalition of nations have a fourfold plan. They come to take a spoil and to turn their land upon the places now inhabited. The plan is to carry away silver and gold and to take away cattle and goods. In these passages, the word spoil means to strip someone and to take away booty or the spoils of war in a victory. The Hebrew word for goods can also refer to money, riches, or valuable substances. Years ago, some scholars speculated that the mineral wealth of the Dead Sea, estimated at $2 trillion, would be the hooks to bring the invading armies against Israel. But there are too many weaknesses in this Dead Sea wealth theory. First, this wealth is in the minerals that are found in the waters, which are also found in any commodity-producing nations in the world. Second, the Dead Sea is shared by two nations, Jordan and Israel, not just Israel, which means that taking the Dead Sea would involve seizing half of the waters from Jordan. Third, the scripture itself says that God will put hooks in the jaws of the enemy armies and bring them down upon the mountains. This Hebrew word for hooks, and it's pronounced kach, can refer to a ring in a person's nose or lips. Today, around the northern part of the Dead Sea and to the extreme south of the sea are thousands of acres of vineyards, fruit-bearing trees, and in the south, countless farms that produce numerous types of vegetables. Many of the nations surrounding Israel and some of north of Israel have limited land for farming, and they experience continual droughts and water shortages that make irrigation difficult or impossible. The hooks may well be goods and spoil connected to food, as the hooks in the jaw can be a simple metaphor indicating God's pulling the armies down. Another way to look at the hooks is that since people eat with their mouths, the jaws could be a figurative reference to God using the need for food to pull down a coalition seeking to exploit the land for their personal benefit. In the prophecy, Ezekiel said God turned them back, put hooks in their jaws, and bring them forth. Scholars have discussed the meaning of God's turning them back. It appears possible that the Islamic nations mentioned in the prophecy intended to attack Israel, but instead turned back. Later, God drew them into the war with Israel, knowing about their demise because he determined it in advance. And it says, Ezekiel saw armies of soldiers riding upon horses. So we're going to talk about the horses in battle. This is perhaps the most critical argument leveled at the prediction being a modern war, causing some to believe this battle prophecy has already been fulfilled. I don't see how. I don't know of any time in history of that happening. In modern warfare, military personnel and soldiers fight on foot or ride into battle on modern equipment, not on horseback. However, today in numerous Islamic nations, thousands of horses are ridden as forms of transportation due to rough terrain, narrow mountain passages, and steep, rugged mountains. Horses are used in the more primitive rural types of communities in Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and in many of the Islamic nations in southern Russia. Personal friends who breed horses have informed me that Arab leaders often fly to America to purchase the best bred horses. From a purely military perspective, in future wars, it is quite possible that an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP weapon, or some other form of unknown weapon could be detonated over the mountains of Israel. An EMP or similar weapons could destroy the ability of electricity to work in any form of copper wiring and could shut down computer systems and other types of technology that could be used in activating missiles or communicating with an army on the field. This speculation, and clearly technology will change, but any impact on the electrical grid could initiate the need to return to a more primitive form of transportation. Also, the region in northern Israel, where much of the battle will occur, is filled with large, rugged mountains that would make fighting with modern weaponry difficult. However, this area could be accessed using horses. Don't know, okay? And then we have the protection of Israel during the battle. Israel will overcome her enemies.
Interject something here.
Yes.
One of the Bible codes that we got from New Zealand talks about horses in there, and it says it can also be translated as vehicular cars or vehicular elements. So it can be translated either way, as horses are vehicular.
Like white Toyota pickups?
Yes.
Maybe.
Right.
Israel will overcome her enemies through divine intervention. Ezekiel sees that God will send a fire on Magog, smiting weapons out of their hands, using great hailstones and overflowing rain. From simply a natural perspective, the northern Bashan region is a land of ancient and extinct volcanoes. That's one of the things I said when we were driving through. It's like, this looks like it's been all volcanically created. Well, if you go to any of the places, you'll notice the black rock.
Where are you talking about?
In the area of Israel called the Bashan.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I mean, you're riding in a valley and you're looking up at mountains on either side.
Right.
And so you know you're in the middle of a volcanic territory.
Right.
Right. It's just a different feeling. The fire could be the result of, it says from a simply natural perspective, the northern Bashan region is a land of ancient and extinct volcanoes. The fire could be the result of weapons explosions catching the land and trees on fire, or the resurgence of all volcanoes that will explode during the battle, sending hot magma down into the valley between the mountains. During certain seasons, natural hailstones have fallen in Israel, including the northern part specified by the prophecy. When a person leaves the Sea of Galilee and heads north, the elevation of the land goes from 702 feet below sea level at the sea to a series of mountains in the north that reach 3,300 feet in altitude. You do go quite quickly. Yeah. Covering 690 square miles. The Golan Bashan region experiences large amounts of winter rain, thus an overflowing rain would not be abnormal during certain seasons. And of course, they build big basins and things like that to try to hold that water. Water is very valuable there. It is clear from the text that a major earthquake will occur as part of God's divine plan to defeat the invaders. That's in 38:19 through 20. The fishes of the sea will feel the impact, alluding to the Mediterranean and no doubt the Sea of Galilee, which are Israel's two main bodies of water that contain marine life. The shaking will be so intense that the walls will collapse and mountains will be leveled. Some prophetic scholars believe, however, that the weapons used in this battle may include some type of chemical or biological weaponry. We just talked about biological weapons, didn't we?
Yeah.
And not merely bizarre weather released as God's judgment. The slain armies will form a multitude of corpses filling the land until the people will stop their noses because of the stench. Note that the bodies will be left untouched for 7 months until men are employed to search for remains, and they shall sever out men of continual employment passing through the land to bury the passengers, those that remain upon the face of the earth to cleanse it. After the end of 7 months, they shall search. The bleached skeletal remains will be marked with signs and later buried. The removal of weapons will require 7 years to completely cleanse the land, as it is written. And they that dwell in the cities of Israel shall go forth and shall set on fire burn weapons, both the shields and bucklers, the bows and arrows, and the handstaves and the spears, and they shall burn them with fire 7 years. The destruction of the weapons include a massive amount of military hardware used in the coat that the inhabitants from Israel's cities are assigned to set fire to the weapons, and that no wood from the field or forest is used to burn these weapons. In Ezekiel's day, wood would be the common method of fueling the fires. The question has arisen, why would Israel allow human remains to remain scattered in the mountains for 7 months? The most common speculation is that the land has been polluted through the use of some form of chemical weapon, creating a foreign or forbidden zone for 7 months. Notice the barriers of the dead will cleanse the land, mentioned 3 times in the narrative. Certainly, there are some weapons of mass destruction that would and could cause land to become polluted for an extended period of time, making it unsafe for survivors to enter a restricted area until the dangerous poison on the ground was removed by either military experts or through a natural process over time, 7 months. The area where the largest multitude is slain will be called the Valley of Hamongog. That name means the multitude of Gog. This phrase has never been used in or around Israel at any time in her ancient or modern history of war. So that's another indication. He's arguing here that this is a war that will happen, not one that has happened, right? The region of the graves of Gog will be called Homanah or Hamanah. Let me say it this way. hamona, a word meaning multitude. The prophet makes clear that God allows this incredible defeat of Israel's surrounding enemies to make his holy name known and to make it a day of renown in which he will be glorified and a time the Lord will set his glory among the heathen. After the battle concludes, the Almighty states, "Then shall they know that I am the Lord their God. From that moment on, the Lord will no longer hide his face or favor from Israel." Israel is not the only nation that will be impacted during this major war, as God will also send a fire on Magog, and among them that dwell carelessly in the isles. Magog is called the land of Magog, which we know from the text is connected with the people north of Israel. Note the word north is mentioned 3 times in the narrative. A fire is sent, indicating that it comes from an outside source into the land of Magog. Some scholars believe this may actually be Israel's military retaliation on the land of Magog and for overseeing or even motivating these Islamic hordes prior to and during this Israeli assault. The modern Israeli army is well capable of a fiery retaliation against any enemy who would use weapons of mass destruction against its population. The word isles, spelled I-S-L-E-S, can mean an island or the coastal land of a nation that runs along the sea. Thus, fire on the isles could refer to islands or the region of the coastal areas of nations, as this word can be used for both. In the time of Ezekiel, these isles could also refer to lands that were unknown in his day, but would exist at the time of the future war. The word carelessly refers to the inhabitants believing that they have security. They are living with confidence and have no fear of danger. However, as the falls on in Israel, so will fire be sent upon certain coastal areas and islands. Well, we've seen that already, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the fire that was falling on Israel, and then they shot back at Iran, right?
Sure did.
So the 2 important clues are talking about the timing of the conflict. The 2 important clues within the text identifying the timing of the war. First, it will occur when Israel is brought back from their captivity, as it is written, "When I have brought them again from the people and gathered them out of their enemies' lands, and am sanctified in them in the sight of many nations." And that's Ezekiel 39:27. God declared, "Now will I bring again the captivity of Jacob and have mercy upon the whole house of Israel, and will be jealous for my holy name." In the setting of the prophetic book in Ezekiel 37, Israel is restored as a nation. And in chapters 38 and 39, it is attacked by what we now know are Islamic enemies after they have amassed a great army and have built cities in Israel. The second clue is in the phrase, "the latter days," which when used in terms of biblical prophecy refer to the days prior to the Messiah's return to rule on earth. In 1948, following the Holocaust, Israel was restored as a nation. Immediately when they began to organize an army, rebuild old cities, build new cities, and expand their borders after several major wars. Since that time, the nations alluded to in Ezekiel's war are now populated with a majority of Muslims who are very anti-Israel in their spiritual and political views. Certainly, the alignment of nations for this battle, the details included in the narrative, indicate the fulfillment of this major prophecy. So there we have his teaching on Ezekiel 38 and 39, things that he was pointing out. I think his main argument there is to make the point that he believes this is going to happen
in the future.
There are preterists, right? People who think that a lot of this stuff has already happened. Yeah. They think the book of Revelation's already happened.
Right.
So anyway, of course we don't. Perry doesn't. So these are some of the things that we will be looking. I thought, we're going into a time, like you said, extremely prophetic.
Yeah.
If we are indeed exactly 2,000 years after Yeshua began his ministry, we are coming to the conclusion of those,
right.
of the 6 days and headed into the 7th.
Right.
And then we have, of course, Daniel's 70th week, right?
It's interesting that when Jesus died in AD 30, if we forward that 2,000 years. 2030, look when Wormwood is going to hit in 2029, right before 2030.
Right.
So there's going to be a tremendous fallout, a tremendous number of people that will turn to the Lord in the next few years, because one of the things that the Bible code said about it, and there is a Bible code on Apophis if you want to go and see and read it and watch it, is that the whole thing is just going to occur with a tremendous amount of fear across the world.
Right.
So
I got a couple things. This is the latest Levitt letter. On the cover, it has Christian Zionism, Heresy or History. And it was written by Chris Mitchell on this. But there's some things in it I want to bring out here. This is an article written by Yehuda, and I'm going to say it's Teitelbaum is the name, from halaviishmael.com. And of course, it's the focus on Muslim. And it's titled, "The Next Generation of ISIS is Being Raised in America." Interesting, right?
Yeah.
2 teams from Montclair, New Jersey were arrested in November for plotting an ISIS-inspired terror attack. We didn't hear much about that in the news. I did hear about it, but not very much. One is the son of a Queens College professor, much like our new illustrious mayor of New York is the son of a college professor. The other is the son of a senior official at the United Nations. They weren't poor or desperate. They grew up in multi-million-dollar homes in desirable suburbs in the country. They attended one of the best public schools in New Jersey, played sports, and were surrounded by comfort, stability, and opportunity. And yet, with all of that, they decided joining ISIS and murdering innocent people was a noble cause. That should terrify every American, because they weren't kids who were radicalized in refugee camps or raised in war zones. Their families were educated, worldly, and privileged. How do young men who grow up with comfort and security end up pledging allegiance to ISIS? The answer in what America has allowed itself to become. For years, our schools, media, and political institutions have promoted a worldview built on resentment. They teach young people that Western civilization is built on oppression. Success is a sign of privilege. Victimhood is a moral superiority. And violence can be justified if it's committed in the name of resistance. This same mindset drives elite college students to deface posters of kidnapped Israelis and rally for intifada. It's what makes university presidents equivocate about calls for genocide. It's what makes journalists write about the murder of Israeli civilians as an uprising. Once a society loses moral clarity, this is the result. And when Zoran Mamdani, the mayor-elect of the largest city in America, now the mayor, repeatedly refuses to condemn terrorism, that conclusion becomes permission. It teaches young people that there are no moral absolutes. It teaches them that anything can be excused if you frame it as struggle. For years, America was immune to such radicalization. We thought that wealth, education, and stability would protect us. But comfort doesn't protect a society that stops believing in itself. It makes it weaker. And also believing in the God of the Bible, right?
Yeah.
The next generation of ISIS won't arrive from Syria or Iraq. It will come from within our borders, from children who never learned gratitude, inherited freedom, but were told to hate it, and grew up in privilege, but believe that they live under oppression.
Yep.
The people encouraging this won't be in training camps. They will be in classrooms, media offices, and political circles. America needs to wake up. Stories like this one are symptoms of a deep sickness. If you don't fight for your country and for your children, no one else will. Societies collapse when comfort turns into apathy, which it turns itself into self-destruction. It's up to us now. America won't survive if we wait for someone else to protect it. And we also have that in the Christian world now, right? We've got all of these people that are supposedly from the Judeo-Christian ethic who are now questioning Israel and saying, why are we following Israel? right? Why are we protecting them?
Well, you got a lot of these non-governmental organizations, which are actually church organizations, that are defying the law to help illegal aliens enter the country.
Right.
And, they're going to have blood on their hands. It's very clear. And the Cardinal of Chicago, he agrees that he now recently made the statement, we're for aliens. Yeah.
Yep.
They're for the aliens.
I saw this advertisement. They're trying, of course, to sell some books here to parents, but it was on Facebook. I don't know that I can find that particular, but it's an article from November of this year. It says, youth pastor exposes the shocking truth why 73% of church kids abandon faith. And that's a statistic there, 73%. Okay, they should have been our strongest believers. They walked away instead. If you have elementary aged kids in church every Sunday, if you think knowing Bible stories equals strong faith, if you've noticed teenagers drifting away from church and wonder why, if you believe more activities and better programs will keep them engaged, then what I'm about to reveal could save your child from becoming another statistic. 73% of kids raised in Christian homes abandoned their faith by the age of 18. This isn't about rebellion, college professors, or peer pressure. This is about a fundamental flaw in how we teach faith to children, a flaw that starts destroying their belief when they're just 8 years old. This person writing this, he says, my name is Pastor Michael Chen. For 22 years, I've led youth ministries across Texas. I've taught over 3,000 kids, written curriculum, led conferences. Parents trust me with their children's spiritual development. But in May 2023, I watched my own success story crumble. Sarah Mitchell was perfect. Homeschooled, knew 200 Bible verses by heart, led worship, went on every missionary trip. 2 weeks after high school graduation, she posted on Instagram, finally free to admit, I haven't believed any of this for years. Her parents were devastated. We did everything right. Her mom sobbed in my office. That's when I realized the horrible truth. We have done everything exactly wrong. I spent 6 months analyzing every kid who left our youth group over 5 years. 87 kids total. 64 had walked away from faith. But here's what shocked me. The kids who left knew more Bible stories than those who stayed. They attended more programs. They memorized more verses. I dug deeper into child development research. What I found changed everything I believed about teaching faith. Between the ages of 8 and 14, children's brains undergo what neuroscientists call the cognitive shift. They stop accepting information just because adults say it. They start asking why and how do you know? Dr. Patricia Goldman at Stanford discovered that this is when children develop their epistemic framework, their basic system for determining what's true. If children don't develop reasons for faith during this window, they'll find reasons against it later. But here's the scandal. 99% of children's ministry focuses on what to believe, not why to believe it. Why everything we're doing backfires? I tested every popular children's program. Vacation Bible School, fun activities, zero theology. Kids remember the games, not God. Sunday school, some 50 Bible stories on repeat. David and Goliath 20 times, but never why it matters today. Bible memory, kids can recite John 3:16 perfectly. Ask them what eternal life means, blank stares. Youth groups, pizza, dodgeball with a 5-minute devotion. We're entertaining them into apostasy. Meanwhile, their schools teach them to think critically about everything except faith. We tell them just believe. School teaches them question everything. Guess which message wins when they're 18?
Yeah.
The underground resource transforming kids' faith. Here's what makes me angry. The solution already exists. Professional apologists, people who defend faith for a living, have been utilized material with their own kids for years. These materials teach how to think, not just what to think. They answer the real question kids ask. If God made everything, who made God? Why do bad things happen to good people? How do we know the Bible isn't made up? But these resources stayed hidden in homeschool conventions and private Christian schools. Regular parents didn't even know they existed. One resource kept appearing in my research, the Systematic Theology Workbook series, created by a team of apologists, theologians, and child psychologists specifically for ages 6 to 14. But this isn't another Bible storybook. It's a systematic worldview curriculum disguised as fun activities. Each lesson uses what they call discovery theology. Instead of telling kids God exists, it guides them to discover evidence for God through puzzles and experiments. Instead of saying the Bible is true, it teaches them to evaluate truth claims like junior detectives. Instead of demanding blind faith, it builds reasonable faith. Kids don't just learn Christianity, they learn to think Christianly. So, and then he goes on to tell about this, about how this works, and there is a course that he's selling here. But it says the windows closing every Sunday. Well-meaning parents drop their kids at programs designed in the 1980s. Every Sunday, those kids' brains develop a little more without theological foundation. Every Sunday, we get close to another graduation day of walkaways. Sarah Mitchell is in college now, posting about how toxic Christianity is. Okay, that could have been prevented. Don't let your kid when the solution is sitting right here. So I thought interesting thing to bring up. I don't know. I'm not going to advertise this course. I can't evaluate it. Right. I mean, a lot of it is very good, and it makes you, and so. And if somebody wants to know about it, you can write me, and I can, or whatever, and I will tell you what it's called and everything. But it's something to think about.
Yep.
People push information at these kids, but like you said, they're not teaching them to think critically, and so going through all of this stuff is just, it's not building a Christian believer.
And I think part of that, and I went through that. By the time I was 16, 17 years old, I had been a member of 3 churches that had split up.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've got factions of people who are claiming to be Christians fighting each other over stupid things like money in the church is going, and pastors who aren't taking salaries, and all that they're taking every year is a vacation, and you've got Christians in that church, supposed Christians in that church, saying, well, I'm not getting my steak dinner every month, because what they would do is they would split up over and above what the bills were, and the kids would go roller skating every month, and all adults would get a steak dinner. They'd all go together and go.
Well,
and that doesn't happen one time because the pastor's daughter maybe had a knee surgery and kind of needed the money and asked for it. Just stupid stuff. And it's a viable argument. Toxic Christianity,
yeah,
it is a viable argument,
right,
in my opinion.
Yep.
So something happened with Sarah. It may not have been with her dad,
Right,
but something happened, and she's not willing to share it right now. Eventually she will, because if she ever gets to a point to where she gets into it again, and she starts figuring out the real reason why she went to church in the first place, right. Maybe it wasn't her parents, maybe it wasn't all the other parishioners. She was doing it because she wanted to, which is what I did.
Right.
I had to make the circle and make my connection to God on my own.
Right.
Right.
So it's something to think about, because we are seeing a great falling away now.
Right.
And then we've got this intrusion into the country now of the demonic. They took basic Christianity out of school, And, they did the separation of church and state. They appeased the atheists. But you also have, of course, the Marxists in the college that have infiltrated their down through the regular school teachers. And so we have a problem. And, but like you said, it has to come down to a personal relationship. And the kids just getting pushed this stuff at them, it's like I said, not building critical thinking and not building a relationship.
And I think part of that comes with, you got people teaching Sunday school who really have no business teaching Sunday school.
That's true.
They don't have the education to do it.
Right. So things to ponder on. I don't have any answers right this moment, but there are materials out there. So if you have kids and grandkids and you see that there is an option to help. Let's just say we don't want to push people down. We don't want to say, well, take your kids out of the vacation Bible school. I'm not saying that.
No.
But you need to maybe do things differently. You need to supplement things. You need to actually.
If I were to give everybody advice, whenever your kids get like that, try to show them scriptures to say that God is perfect. The church isn't, and the people in that church aren't either.
Yep.
And whenever you get that together, it's like you have to make your own connection to God. We can't do it for you.
Yep.
You have to get in the Word. You have to read it for yourself and find your connection.
Right. We're going along a little overtime here, and I got to get home and shoot my kitty. He needs his insulin shot. But we have an archaeology thing here. Ancient Assyrian inscription confirms Hezekiah or Hezekiah, his rebellion. Archaeologists in Jerusalem recently unearthed a rare 2,700-year-old pottery fragment in a drainage canal at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem's Old City. The 1-inch artifact with an Assyrian inscription appears to be part of a seal that was used to authenticate official documents. The composition of the bulla, inscribed clay, generally matches the components of the minerals and rocks in the Tigris Basin. Therefore, the bulla is most likely arrived here in Jerusalem as official doc from one of the Assyrian centers, researchers explained. This incredible find appears to confirm another biblical narrative. Israeli tour guide Yoav Motem commented that the seal appears to be from the time of King Hezekiah during the First Temple period. King Hezekiah was facing a military campaign coming from Assyria, he explained. We know that the kings before Hezekiah were under probable control or had to pay tax to Assyria. Researchers noted that the inscription confirms the biblical story that King Hezekiah delayed paying taxes to the Assyrians. The rare discovery was uncovered as part of an archaeological excavation by the Israel Antiquities Authority in collaboration with the City of David Foundation. Moriah Cohen, who works at the Archaeological Experience in Emek Tzurim, found the artifact. I was sifting through the dirt and suddenly noticed a shard with a strange decoration. Examining it closely, it looked to me to be cuneiform, but seemed totally unreasonable. Cohen had to do a double take to make sure it wasn't a decoration. Even though so many fascinating finds have discovered here over the years, we've never ever found anything like this. The thought that after 2,700 years, I'm the first person to actually touch this pottery with my hands is a very exciting. This is a once in a lifetime find. And so then they go on to talk about the all of the things King Hezekiah. It says this artifact is very, very important in connecting the history of the land of Israel to the Bible and to the history of the ancient Near East as a whole. So you can see a little picture there of this little pottery shard, confirming once again the Bible is true. So
it is.
All righty. So that's the end of that. I hope everyone has stayed with us. I hope you've enjoyed our commentary about Ezekiel 38. Any concluding words?
I think we've done all we can do here.
Done all we can do here. So tomorrow evening is going to be Shabbat, first Shabbat of 2026. And we will see what information we get tomorrow evening from Pastor Larry, and maybe even Rabbi Vern will show up. We'll see. But and until that time, I mean, if you want to help this program to continue to come your way, Jim will tell you how.
You can make your donation through the mail to Congregation.Ariel, 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63, Marion, Illinois, 62959. That's Congregation.Ariel, 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63, Marion, Illinois, 62959. And in your envelope, stick a little note in there. Tell us how you'd like your donation.
Well, I hope everyone is blessed this coming year. So I hope we have more blessed days and happy days than sad ones. But we know, of course, this is life and we don't know what is ahead, but we can take authority of that 10 yards around us, sound those shofars, stand up in defense, right? And until we meet again, same time, same place.